Yeah, I told you what my son said. My son came to visit one time. He goes, "You can't call your church a church." And I said, "Why not?" He goes, "Because you have throat lozengers on the table." Like, what does that have to do with it? I thought he would say because we were so crazy and that we sit up and danced. And he said, "No, it's because we had throat lozengers on the table." I was like, okay. Anyway, but we were raised in he was raised in a pretty strict, very strict. Anyway, so today I'm going to talk about the power of will. And her song was pretty much my whole talk. So thank you, Gretchen. I could sit down. It's probably better if I did. Okay, so have you guys ever noticed how insufficient the human will is when it comes to actually completing goals and course correcting after we've made decisions that we regret? How hard is that? Yeah, it's so hard. Like, think of New Year's resolutions. How long do they last, right? Yeah. Anyway, so growing up in a Bible-based religion, my favorite verse was the one about Paul when he talked about how he's suffering from doing what he didn't want to do and not doing what he knows he's supposed to do, right? So this is what Paul said: "I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate." And then he goes on to say, "For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do." So, that always made me feel better when I was a kid, right? And there he is just wrestling. He's wrestling with the human struggle between the higher will and the ego will, right? And the lower impulses, the flesh. So, and I know some people that are really self-disciplined, and they may look like they're always doing the right thing, but our brains are wired for safety and survival. So when we do assert our will, it is usually in the direction of self-preservation. And this is just our default, right? So science, brain science, neuroscience even proves this. So this is from a study that they were studying the fear circuits with Joseph Ledoux. And the amygdala rapidly, the one down here, the part of the brain, rapidly processes potential threats before the conscious brain or the prefrontal cortex even evaluates them. So signals from the thalamus can take the low road straight to the amygdala in less than 12 milliseconds. Far faster than our rational thought processes, which is about 24 milliseconds. So this means that our brain defaults to survival mode first, prioritizing safety over curiosity, creativity, or long-term planning. Typically, it goes from the prefrontal cortex, when we're in our right mind, when we're thinking rationally, right? And it just takes this high road down to the amygdala. Oh, I might be in danger, so I'm going to move. Or this might be something I don't want to be in, so I'm going to leave. But the thalamus bypasses that, goes straight to the amygdala, and then goes up to the prefrontal cortex. So it does that one first, which is the fight or flight. So we're going to automatically react. For example, in their lab experiments, when participants were shown fearful faces or threatening images, the amygdala activation happens even if the person isn't consciously aware that they saw the image, because it flashed so quickly. But from an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense, right? It's better to jump away from a stick that we think is a snake instead of taking the time to analyze it. So it's survival, right? So when it comes to our human finite self-awareness, it's subjective. It's all about us. We want what we want, even when we think we're making decisions based on what we think is going to help others. And we see it all the time. Humankind suffers from willfulness. That would be willfulness. Willfulness is behind most of the world's problems, from war, genocide, to global warming. But every religion recommends seeking a higher will or a higher purposefulness. Christianity points to Jesus' teachings about prayer, where in the Lord's Prayer, he says, "Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And his surrender in the Garden of Gethsemane, we talked about that a few months ago, "Not my will, but your will be done." These are models for the development of the spiritual will. These verses have been interpreted to mean also that a God being oversees everything and causes everything to happen or not to happen. It must be God's will that your son became paralyzed when he was hit on the football field. It must be God's will that you got your new car and your new job. It must be God's will that 120 people perished in the floods in Texas, 36 of them being children. So that's how asinine that statement is, but that's how most of us were raised, that there's a God out there and he directs everything that happens, right? If we think of God not as a supernatural person, but as all that is, then what would your will on earth as it is in heaven involve? What would that mean? What could the heavenly or universal will be? So I like the way Linda Martello Winsett put it. Heaven represents the unified field, the invisible space within which all things are possible. So we also know it as the quantum field, the field of possibility. So when we're in a meditative state during prayer, meditation, or when we're focusing on possibilities, we're in a visionary state of being in which we align with our divine identity or Christ consciousness. And it's in this awareness that our will is the will. The universal ideal of infinite love, eternal life, ever-present wisdom, and all that is good. When we're connected to that unified field, God cannot require us to do anything, and God cannot bestow upon us any condition or circumstance, because God is not like a person. God, the one mind and power throughout the cosmos, is eternal life, internal love, infinite love, ever-present wisdom, and all spiritual power. Therefore, God's will is the fulfillment of life, love, and wisdom, and all spiritual power. So when and where have you perceived yourself to be at a crossroads between self-serving personal desires and the grander sense of purpose? I was thinking about this, and the one thing I came up with was, so my plan after I graduated from CSU in 2003 was to go into the Peace Corps. So I did not consult with divine will. It was a desire that I had that my ego thought was a great idea, right? So I started the application process midway into my senior year. I was debating where to go, and of course it had to be because you had to learn the new language. So it had to be somewhere where the language would be really easy to learn, because I was like 48 years old. So I had done all the research. I talked to everybody who had gone before or that were planning on going. And my path was laid, man. I thought I couldn't do anything more altruistic than serving in the Peace Corps. And my ego loved it. We were on board, right? Then all of a sudden, I decided not to go. Just out of the blue. I lost all interest. I stopped the application process. It was so weird. I couldn't understand why I was so set on going, and then suddenly I just decided that I wasn't going to go. So at the time, I was really disappointed in myself. It was like, man, you've gone through college, you're almost done. You finished that. Why couldn't you follow through on this? But then in the last semester of my senior year, I got the phone call from my sister Becky telling me that she had an incurable cancer called multiple myeloma, and that she was going to need a donor. They told her that she might have 18 months to live if she did the traditional bone marrow transplant, the one from the hip, But my heart sank, and my mind went straight to the horror of how I was going to live without her. Because Becky was not only my sister, as you guys know, she was my mother figure, and she was my best friend. She was the sister that closed the gap between me and my three older sisters. She was the youngest of the three, and there was a big gap between us. So I was like the lost child, because it was 3 in that generation, then me, and then 4 years of my little brother. So I was in between genders, and I was in between generations. And so she was the one that really helped me. She paid attention to me. She tried to protect me and take care of me, which was really hard in our wild, crazy household, trust me. But since my traumatized brain shut down when she told me about her cancer, I didn't hear the part about a possible stem cell research project that she might qualify for. Hang on a second. My alarm is going off. That she might qualify for at the National Institute for Health. She called a few days later and told me that she needed a stem cell donor, and the match would probably be a sibling. They told her that it would have to be a sibling. Well, there were 4 of us, 4 siblings. She asked if I'd be willing to be tested if I could be a possible donor. So I was, of course, So I received the kit in the mail. I rode my bike, because I didn't have a car, rode my bike to the clinic on campus, and I was so excited. I remember that day like it was yesterday, because I just remember like fear and excitement were coursing through me. It was just like so excited. And I was telling everybody in the clinic what it was for, because I thought that was the coolest thing, Anyway, so then I got the news that my oldest sister was a match, and so was I. So we would have to go to NIH and get further testing done to see which one was a better match. All of our tests came back exactly the same. It was the weirdest thing. And they were like, this has never happened. So much to my oldest sister's disappointment, they chose me instead of her. So she was really mad. I should tell you the time. Well, she's gone, so I can tell you this story. She was very controlling and very bossy, right? Because she was the oldest. She thought she had to take care of us, right? So she was very, she was very controlled. And so she told the doctor, she said that here we are, the top research doctors, right, in the country. She says, I think we were with the social worker. I really think that this decision should be left to us. And we need to decide who's going to be the donor. And of course, because she knew she could bully us, because that's what was always her MO, right? Anyway, but they said no. They said no. We're going to make the decision. I'm thinking, oh God, thank you, God, that they made the decision. So they made the decision, and it was me. So as you know, I became her stem cell donor. That was 21 years ago. She's been able to see 3 of her 4 children born and 9 grandchildren born since she was diagnosed. So, but by the time the procedure was over, it took me a couple of months, and it was like, oh, that's why I didn't go to the Peace Corps. It was like, duh. And I was so relieved that I was not going off to some remote country with probably really big bugs. So, it was just like, yeah, no, I don't know what I was thinking. But by that time, I was super excited. And it was just like divine order was right there. Divine assignment was right there in front of me, and I didn't know it. So anyway, so developing our spiritual power of will starts with willingness. When we hear the word will, we think of willpower, pushing through, making it happen, and we know how good that is, right? Well, that's the ego's version. But the spiritual power of will isn't about forcing, it's about aligning. It's not my will be done, but thy will be done through me. The spiritual power of will is the decider, but it must first be surrendered to a higher wisdom. We also must be willing to listen to be moved in the right direction. So we need to be open. And usually that happens first thing in the morning it happens for me before I even get out of bed. Because I just say, I make no decisions without you, guide my day, and, let me get out of the way. Anyway, because one afternoon I ran down to the store. I live close to the Safeway, right? And so I ran into the store. I had one thing I had to buy, soy milk, to make my yogurt. And it's a timed thing, right? It's like takes 12 hours. So I have to do it right at the right time so I can time it where it doesn't get done in the middle of the night, And so I was in a hurry. I was rushed. I had my plan set. I'm zipping down the aisle, and I see somebody that I vaguely knew from hospice. And my ego's like, don't say hello, just look the other way, You don't have time to talk. And then I was almost past her, and the voice said, stop and say hello. And I'm just like, okay. So I turned around, said hello. We ended up talking for like 20 minutes. And she said, I know, but she said when she was done, she said, I so appreciate us talking. She said, this morning I prayed that I would find someone to talk to. She said, I am really struggling. And it was just like, there it is, divine will. It's right there. And so if we're open, we can really hear it. And I realized that my ego was all about speed and efficiency. But divine will was about connection and compassion. The soy milk could wait. Spirit's appointment was right there in front of me, and the yogurt turned out fine. It was fine. So yogurt. Ego will seeks control. Divine will invites collaboration with love. Jesus teaches in the Course in Miracles that your little willingness is all that is required. Not perfection, not certainty, just a crack in the door. And Maria Felipe is always teaching this when she comes and works with us. There's quite a few lessons in Course in Miracles regarding willingness. For example, I am willing to see this differently. Holy Spirit, decide for me. And these can be mantras. These are wonderful. I do not understand what anything is for. That's a great surrender. It's like, I don't get it. So just help me see what's going on here, Spirit. So I remember struggling with forgiving a person, and it was hard. Something had happened, and I just had a really, really hard time, and I was praying about it. And I just remember finally saying, okay, I'm willing to see this differently. And right then, it was just like everything softened. I felt like I was like being lifted to a higher consciousness. Just saying those words, you know? And then I could tell that it was done. It was done. The forgiveness was done because I was willing to see it differently. So that lesson has become a main mantra in my life because for me, it creates, like I said, an instant shift in my perspective. And it raises my consciousness, and then it allows me to align with the divine. When I first started thinking about the power of will, all I could think about was choice. To me, will is just choice. It's the choices that we make, right? And how we make them. So the spiritual power of will is our God-given ability to say yes or no, to direct our mind and heart toward the highest good. Choice is how will expresses in our daily life. Without choice, our will would be dormant. It's the act of choosing that activates it. So we have two ways we exercise our power of choice, through conditioned choice or conscious choice. Conditioned choice comes from habit, fear, societal programming. It's automatic and often unexamined. So it can be a lot of old programming from how we grew up. The other way is our conscious choice. Our conscious choice is will aligned with spiritual understanding. It's choosing from our Christ nature rather than from ego. When our will is spiritually guided, our choices open pathways towards love, harmony, and peace. And every choice gives us an opportunity. Gives us an opportunity to align with divine guidance, thy will be done. It also gives us an opportunity to affirm our values through action. I thought this was a really good one. Every choice we make is an opportunity to confirm outwardly what we inwardly hold as sacred. If we value compassion, patience, generosity, or forgiveness, then choosing words and behaviors that reflect those qualities affirms that. And it also gives us an opportunity to redirect our thoughts from the lower vibrations of fear and resentment to the higher vibrations of love and forgiveness. It turns the ordinary moments, what to say, how to respond, what to focus on, into sacred opportunities. Spiritually, choice is a gift of freedom. We are not bound to old patterns through will. We can choose again. And in doing so, we co-create with God. And as with all powers, we are constantly using our power of will. We can choose to live and act from our highest and best, or we can choose to act from our ego. We can meditate or vegetate. In either case, we're still using our power of will. So there's a few more. I was thinking about will too as the director, because we're in this illusion, this play, and our will can be our director. Charles Fillmore says the spiritual will is the executive faculty of the mind. It's the decider, but it must be surrendered to the higher mind. Ernest Holmes of Science of Mind, God can do for us only what God can do through us. So in other words, God does not override our will. God cannot override our will. God waits for our willingness. For me, having faith and trusting in a divine will is a must. So faith and trust. I think of trust and faith as the bridge between my human uncertainty and the vast knowledge of the divine. Without them, we tend to slip back into relying solely on our own understanding, which can limit the flow of wisdom, timing, and opportunities that divine will orchestrates. In the 12-step program, we have sponsors who guide us through the steps. We also sponsor others and guide them through the steps. So one of the young women that I am sponsoring right now is really struggling. And the reason it's so hard for her is that she's having trouble having faith in a higher power to align with and in making decisions and to surrender her will to. It's making her journey really, really hard. She hasn't quite formulated an idea of a power that could guide her and make her path a little smoother. But she's really trying. And when she does surrender her will, she's amazed at how things work out. But there is still that uncertainty. And that's the one thing I love about the 12 steps is our higher power is a higher power of our understanding. So we don't have to have that higher power that everybody thinks is a puppeteer in the sky. Anyway, so faith to me is essentially the yes that we whisper before the path is fully lit. So before we really know where we're going, we're willing to say yes. And trust is the walking forward before the ground feels completely solid. Together, they keep our hearts open and receptive, allowing divine guidance to shape our decisions without the constant interference of fear, doubt, or control. When we trust that our identity is true love and align with divine guidance, there is peace in uncertainty. You can rest in the knowledge that you're not alone in making decisions. There's a larger plan at work. This reduces anxiety and overthinking, which is my favorite pastime. It's overthinking. Trust removes the mental noise of second guessing and helps you sense when something feels aligned versus when it's coming from ego or fear. Faith keeps you open to possibilities you may not have considered. Divine will often leads to solutions and paths more beautiful than we could ever imagine, which is usually the case because we're trying to see things from our limited view when really the divine view is everything. Trust helps you persevere when things don't look like they're working out because you know divine timing may be at play. And that's the one thing I'm working with her. Just trust. Just trust. You don't have to feel it right now. Just trust that it's there. In unity, we teach that we are not separate from God. We are expressions of the one presence and one power. Individualizations of the divine mind. We carry within us the same essence that created galaxies, calms storms, and speaks in small, still voices. Think of it as sunlight and sun rays. The sun is the source, and each ray is not partially sunlight. It's 100% sunlight in expression. And most everybody in this room knows on an intellectual level that we are divine love, life, wisdom, and power expressing through a human form. But do we express it in our decision making, in exercising our will, in trusting that everything is working out for our highest good? Do we really, really believe that if we align with divine love, that divine love will lead us in the right direction? The last lesson in A Course in Miracles states, "This holy instant would I give to you. Be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace." Divine will is your will at its most enlightened, most loving, most true. So let love lead the way. So let's go into a short meditation. Let's just take a deep breath. Settle into your chair. We go from the listening mode to the receptive mode. So we turn off our ears, open our hearts. Feel the life within you as it courses through your body. This life is not separate from God. It is God life. You are a radiant expression of the one presence and one power, divine mind in action. Just as a ray of sunlight is fully sunlight, you are fully divine in your awareness, in your essence. In this awareness, divine will is not foreign or imposed. It is the loving intention of your highest self, the Christ nature within you, moving you toward your fullest good. It is the wisdom beyond the small self, guidance from the source you are one with. You can trust it completely because it seeks only your wholeness and joy. Take a few minutes and be in that awareness. Silently affirm, I am one with the divine. Divine will is my will in perfect love. I trust and follow the guidance of my highest self. Imagine yourself standing at a gentle crossroads. One path is the way of human will, full of noise, striving, and uncertainty. The other path is the way of divine will. It feels lighter, more open, lit with a warm golden glow. Step onto the golden path. Feel the light around you and within you. Every step you take is both guided and empowered. You are not walking to God. You are walking as God's presence on earth. Rest in this truth. Trust is natural when you remember who you are. Faith is simply the soul's agreement to let your divine nature lead. We carry this awareness into our day and let it whisper in each decision. Peace guides my steps and love leads my will. And so it is. Thank you all.